Welcome to the week of December 8th. We start this week with a high quality workout of a 75 to 85% steady state. Nothing real thrilling about this one, but it's an important workout, and that's why we do it so often, and it's in the mix pretty much throughout the year. 75 to 85% is different than a threshold run, because a threshold run, we're trying to get to the top of your aerobic capacity before you start going anaerobic and try to stay there as much as possible. Now, some of you are fit enough, you've been back in training long enough since your fall goal race that maybe you can do that and you can do this as a threshold run, and that's fantastic. Do it. I'm all for it. But this is prescribed as a high-end aerobic steady state run, and high-end aerobic is 75 to 85%. Typically, once we get over 85% of your Carbon heart rate formula or VO2, you start to go anaerobic. Below 75%, it's easy aerobic and you're not going to get the benefits from the steady state run. So steady state actually is homeostasis during exercise. However, in this situation, it might be a little bit of a progression run, especially if you're working back into quality workouts and you're not quite sure where that is. We don't want to start too fast and have you slowing down throughout the steady state run. So maybe after a good warm up, of course, maybe that first mile isn't quite as fast as the rest of the run is going to be, but we want to spend as much time between 75 and 85%, and you're going to get more benefit if more of that is at 85% or closer to threshold. So kind of figure that out, how it goes. We don't really want to go anaerobic on this. We don't really want to turn it into a more of a time trial than a steady state run, because that changes the recovery dynamic and everything else that we want to do the rest of the week. Stamina is the ability to maintain a pace, and I've described it that way a number of times, but some of you that are newer haven't heard that. And we're always interested in what pace can you maintain from start to finish. We don't care how fast you can finish if you're not in it towards the end to finish fast. We don't care how fast you can start if you can't maintain it. So it's a pretty important part. It also bridges between endurance and economy. Endurance is the ability to just keep running. Those are the long runs. And if you can go out and run 12, 14, 20 miles or more and it's no problem, your endurance is really good. But to go out and race with just endurance, unless it's a really long race, isn't enough. You have to have economy. And economy training is, at least specific economy training, is at high intensity. So over this high-end aerobic, it's that anaerobic, really hard huffing and puffing type work. And that economy is obviously high-end effort. And what stamina does is it bridges the two. So your endurance, if you're really strong there, you can carry a faster pace longer. If you're really good at the high end, it helps you maintain that pace longer or actually do more work without slowing down. So if we're doing mile repeats, maybe you can do 1 or 2 more mile repeats when your stamina is good, and you can do them a little bit faster because your economy is already good. So again, not the most exciting workout we're ever going to do, but it's very important, other than for the fact that we try to bring in some variety. I know at one of the points where I was training the best I ever had, I was doing a long steady state run of 75 to 85% every Thursday. It was a 10-mile steady state every Thursday. I didn't require a whole lot of entertainment or variety, in part because I was thriving on it and I was getting better. And that was fairly late in my running career. So it's really important, and you're going to benefit from that. Moderate quality workout is an aerobic mix. We're working on getting those gears back after a break and re-entering some quality workouts. Because again, if we think about this, and I know I said this either last week or the week before, if we back off from your marathon date, which most of you it's mid-April or half marathon mid-April to early May, if we look at that, what were we doing in the summer to prepare? We're doing a lot of fast running. So we need to start bringing that back. But these are aerobic intervals. So you're running fast, but you're not going anaerobic. By the time you'd go anaerobic, the intervals are short enough, your effort is appropriate to where maybe the last couple of seconds you realize, I'm glad this is over. So we're doing 40 80s, 30 60s, and 20 40s. So 40 seconds, pretty fast. but then you get 80 seconds or a double time recovery jog, and that should be slow-mo jogging, get as recovered as you possibly can, so the next 40 is as fast as possible. For most of you, it's 4 of those. Then we come and do 4 30-60s, and then 4 to 8, depending on your total mileage, 20-40s. So it's not a whole lot of fast running, but it's really effective. And that's the beauty of this workout, is that it is so effective. And it's really going to benefit you. Because it's aerobic, you're going to recover quickly during the workout. And then on Friday, you probably won't feel it too much unless you way overran it. And certainly by Saturday or 2 days later, depending on when you're doing these during the week, 2 days later, you're not going to feel it at all. So pretty quick recovery. But what we're doing is we're recruiting fast twitch fibers because you're running pretty darn fast. It's just short enough that it's not all that hard. You're going to elongate your stride. You're working on mechanical balance. If you look at your stride length, if we keep it short, that easy run, maybe just a little bit faster than easy run all the time, you get really inefficient mechanically. And you can see when that happens to people, because when they try to sprint, they can't really elongate their stride. So their cadence gets way too high to overcompensate for that. And I think it's a fun workout because you get to run really fast, but it's not painful. The long run this week, negative split long run. For most of you, we're dropping down or at the very least holding distance. If you're just starting to build up and you weren't high enough really to drop back, we're holding distance. Some of you are dropping back. So if your long run is 12 miles, and of course that varies, take the first and the last mile out. Those are warm up, cool down. For a 12-mile example, now you have 10 in the middle. Divide that. The first 5 should be a good long run pace. You're not out there killing it, but you're not sandbagging to make your second half look better. So reasonable, normal long run, maybe slightly faster, but normal long run pace for the first 5 of that middle 10, and then that second 5 should be faster. Again, we don't have to turn that into a race, but it should be a solid effort. For those of you who love long runs and always want to go longer, I encourage you this week to just run faster than that second half, because what we're going to do is we're going to start adding quality to that, and you've already seen that pattern begin. So I'd rather go faster rather than longer on that. And we're adding some moderate quality, so even though if we're dropping back, you're still getting good benefit from the long run. And it's never too soon. Even if you're great at it, we always want to maintain it. Building your pace and effort management skills, and this will help you do that. Especially in cool weather, if you can't run the second half a little bit faster, then we need to address how you're pacing and your effort management. Something else I talked to a few of you about individually, but also talked to the group on Saturday morning about this at Eagle Creek, is, and I know this is a corny example, only exceeded by the corniness of my drawing of the iceberg here, but that's what came to mind with this. Because what I'm seeing, and you see this all the time, but we've had a few more, and it's less than 5, at least that I know of. Maybe there's a few of you out there that have this that I don't know about yet. But when you come off of a marathon, especially if the last step of your season is everything that it takes to finish a marathon, or even a half marathon, but a marathon, especially because you're out there twice as long, right? The tension on those muscles for several hours is significant. So when you cross that line, and if you didn't go do a mile cool down after your marathon, I certainly understand that. I'm not sure I ever did a mile cool down after a marathon. So if that's the case, and then maybe you took some days off and your body was just getting tighter and tighter. Inactivity never made anybody more flexible. Now that's why I have post-race activity the day after that, a half hour of riding a bike or doing whatever, something to pump a little blood to get loose. But probably it would make more sense, at least from this standpoint, if we had a real easy week following the marathon and then took the break. But I know once you're through the marathon or half marathon and it's the last race of the season, you want to be done. You want to take that break. So what happens is you kind of get tighter, you come back and run, and you're feeling okay. Maybe you're feeling better than expected. You start cranking things up a little bit. But this iceberg of tightness is forming. Yes, again, I know it's corny. But maybe you feel a little tightness, maybe you don't. But underneath the surface, those muscles are tight. There's adhesions build up from what you've done to them a few weeks ago. And then at some point, there's a trigger, or it just gradually builds up just through normal running. And now we have a problem. And when something gets tight, it basically restricts the running machine. So now your knees don't track normally, your hips don't track normally, your anterior tib might have to overcompensate for tight calves. Things go wrong. So do some stretching. And I know stretching is a loaded thing for a lot of people. And one of the first studies I ever read when I was studying exercise physiology was a study about how bad stretching was for you. And I read how they did the study and realized there's a lot of bad studies out there. Science and good science are completely different things, and that was bad science. They put people on, I think it was for a 4 or 5 week period, on a strenuous stretching program. Well, anytime you stretch strenuously, it's probably going to be a problem, because if you overstretch something, the natural reaction is for it to tighten up and actually get tighter rather than more flexible. So there was an inherent problem with that study. But I know that people get all excited about stretching. Oh, you shouldn't stretch, you should stretch. I'm going to tell you that you should. And ideally, and as I was talking to the group at Eagle Creek, I know time is a factor for most of you. It's a big factor for most of you. So to spend a little extra time stretching before you run and stretching after you run, that's precious time. And if you're already getting up at a crazy early hour and you have to get up earlier to stretch, or you're trying to get to work on time or get the kids ready, or whatever the case may be, I understand that. There might be, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this, there might be a point where a mile or two less during your run to do that might make sense. So stretching before, it doesn't have to be all that much. If you know something is tight, work on it a little bit. It should be nice and relaxed. It shouldn't feel like a strong stretch at all. You're just trying to get some blood flow to it. I'm a big fan of warming up before you warm up, before you go out and run, whether it's walking up and down the stairs for 5 minutes, getting on the trainer for 10 minutes, doing something. Maybe you're just up and around for a while before you go out and run. I know some of you, the alarm clock goes off in the middle of the night and you're out the door in 5 minutes, and that's just how it has to be. Then ease into the run. You're going to get better flexibility gains stretching after the run. And I learned a long time ago that I have to stretch by time, because if I have a set routine, I can get through that routine really quick. Maybe the routine should take 10 or 15 minutes. I can get it done in 3 if I'm in a hurry. Well, that didn't really accomplish anything. So when I'm done running, I had 15 minutes of stretching. And I work on, it's not always the same. There's some stretches I do every day, but I work on the things that I need to. If I can tell that quad's a little bit tight, I'll spend a little bit more time stretching my quads, a little bit more time with my hips, because I know that that's affecting the quads. If my back's a little tight, I spend maybe 5 of that 15 minutes might be on my back. So you can do whatever you need to do. And I would encourage you not to get too set in a routine, but try different things, see what feels good for you. If you want any direction on that, if you show up early on a Tuesday, I'll show you a couple of stretches. We can figure out what area you want to do. I have some videos, especially of hip stretches, that I can send you. But doing that is really helpful. The other reason to do it, other than injury prevention, because nobody cares about injury prevention, there are a number of things that coaches and sports medicine people can talk about, and people are always interested in things like nutrition and stretching and strength training, that really there's very little action afterwards. If we talk about those things and you actually implement them on an ongoing basis, you're the exception. And that's a pretty cool thing, because that is a competitive advantage. It's going to help your running. Those are all great things. But injury prevention is one of those things. Nobody really cares about it until they're hurt. And then they turn over this leaf and they're going to do this, and they do it until they feel good, and then they stop. Now, hopefully I'm talking to a lot of people that say, well, that's not me. I always do those things and I'm really good about that. If so, great, fantastic. But because injury prevention might not be too exciting to you, let's talk about free speed. We know that the speed comes from cadence times stride length. And we also know that if you're more flexible, the same amount of force, the same amount of effort that you're pushing off the ground with is a longer stride. It means you're faster. So if you can get more flexible and everything else stays the same, you're going to be faster at the same effort. So I don't know what is more appealing than free speed. I know most of you are spending $250, $300 on shoes that give you free speed. If we can add to that a little bit more by being more flexible and preventing injuries and feeling better when you're running, and maybe being able to train more because you feel better, I think that's a pretty cool deal. So enough about flexibility, but I'm seeing that, and I wanted to avoid any more cases of that this season. So another week where we're kind of working up towards Christmas, where people are very busy. Once we get past that, it's going to be full on marathon, half marathon, 10K, whatever you're training for, training full speed ahead at that point.